sowing the seeds of God's Word, one heart at a time. So I'm relatively new in the YouTube channel. Last week I got to share my testimony, which I've done multiple times with other people. I've found that it's probably one of the biggest tools that I have to help other people. It's my own story. And I figured, being as I'm early on in my channel, I would take this opportunity and just share my story with you so that you would understand a little bit more about who I am, where I'm coming from, and why I feel like I need to do what it is that I'm doing. There's so many people out there that were just like me that need to know that there is hope, that things don't have to continue to be the same day in and day out, that you can change. So here's the testimony. I know it's going to be a rather long video this time. For those of you that like to watch testimonials and stuff like that, it'll be good. If not, maybe you can just catch the highlights. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy, and I hope you get something out of this. I'm James. I was born in a small town in Ohio. When I say small, I mean smaller than Boone. We basically had one stoplight. I was about 7.5 years old when I got saved. Now, I grew up in a house of a drunk and abusive father. My earliest memories were of him beating her down in the kitchen and putting her in the hospital. And I tried to intervene a couple of times and just got smacked across the room. So I kind of learned that there wasn't nothing I could do about it. And it was in the summertime, right at summer or right after summer one. We were still in school, whichever side of the summer break we were on. And he came back into town, and I was about 7.5 years old, and they were standing in the kitchen and they were arguing. And I knew where these arguments went. So I was like, I'm out of here. So I basically just took off walking, and for a small kid to go walking around my town wasn't a big deal. I could go into my neighbor's house and get in the refrigerator, and they would just ask if I want milk with it. You know, it was that type of town. And I'm walking downtown in our little downtown area, and I heard this sound coming out of this building, and I've always been a curious guy, so, you know, I wander in there, and I go in, and all these people are standing up, and there's music, and they're singing, and so I sit down in the last row, and everybody gets done singing, and they sit down, and this guy comes out, and he's got this suit and tie on, and he starts talking about this Jesus, and how we're sinners, and how we need him, and it's one of those messages, if you've ever had it, it literally feels like he's speaking directly to you. I don't even know if he knew I was in the room at the time, but he finished up his message, and I know now it was a small Baptist church, and like any good Baptist church, they do an altar call at the end. And I don't remember getting up out of the pew, but I remember him saying that if anybody in here would like to receive the Lord Jesus Christ as their personal Savior, please come forward. And the next thing I know, I'm up front, and he gets down on his knee right there at the altar with me, and he kind of clarifies the gospel, and he's like, do you believe this? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, will you pray this prayer for me and ask Jesus into your heart? And I was like, yeah. So I prayed this prayer, and something changed. I don't know what it was because I was so young, but all of a sudden something was different. I was excited. I began to run around, and I would tell people at school about Jesus, and I was trying to tell my mom and dad about Jesus, and you know, then nobody want to hear nothing from no 7.5-year-old kid, and they began to shut me down, and I just began to speak of him less and less. But he didn't go anywhere, and we moved around a lot when I was a kid. I think I've been in 12 different school systems, and so I wasn't the guy that had all the friends, and I didn't have all the background that everybody else had. So I was always the new kid. So I pretty much hung out with myself. But what I began to understand is there was something different. Like, these kids were able to do stuff that I just couldn't do. I mean, I knew it was wrong, and it made me feel bad, and I just couldn't partake in it. I finally dropped out of school and ran away to be with my real dad, about 15 years old. And we joined the carnival. We actually rode bicycles through the mountains from Ohio down here to North Carolina. It was over a 500-mile trip on bicycles. Incredible. And we joined the carnival, and I began to understand there's a different world out there. It is exactly what you would think it is. We worked a game. The games are rigged, and you know, it's all about sex and drugs and alcohol and money. And I got pretty good at what I was doing. Got to the point where I was making half of my money. And basically what that means is if I took $1 from you 50 cents of that was mine. So I had a high incentive to take as much money from you as I could. And I began to get real good at it. It was a gambling game that I ran. Most of y'all probably know the bushel balls, or the basket, or the ball, the softballs, and you throw them into the bushel basket. Yeah. That's what I did. And I had this guy and his wife up there, and I had him in. It was over $700, I know. He walked up to me, and the first mistake he did is he pulled out a white envelope. What does that tell you? Money. He just came out of the bank. Yeah. So there's his paycheck. So whatever he's got in there, I'm intent on getting it. And just like any job, you pick up skills. You may not have recognized it, but if you look and you stack a whole bunch of different size bills together, each edge of each different kind of bill is a little bit lighter shade. So just by looking at a stack, I could pretty much guess how much money you had relatively closely. And I knew he had right around $1,000. And he started playing my game, and like I said, he's over $700 in, and I don't think he realizes it. He reaches down into his envelope to get more money out, and he realizes he doesn't have any more. And it was at that moment he looked up and he looked over at his wife, and that was the first time I had looked over at his wife. And she was standing there, just as silent as could be, with the biggest tears I've ever seen in my life, just literally streaming down her face. And she said, "That was our rent money, you know." And when she said that, I looked down and she was pregnant, and I looked down even further and she had a little baby in her stroller. And it did something to me. Like, I literally felt like I had got kicked in the chest by a mule. From that moment on, I lost what we call our killer instinct. I wasn't ever able to do that to people anymore, because I seen them as more than just marks. They were people. No, I didn't give them their money back. Some people ask that. But I knew at that point in time I had to get out. I had to get out of the carnival life and stop doing that. And I did. I was about 19 years old when I finally got out, and I went and I got my driver's license for real for the first time, and kind of started to try to live my life, and it wasn't going real well. I had grown up in the bars. That's what I did. I always looked old for my age. I'm only 25, and I was playing. But I did. I hung out in the bars, and I drank beer, and I shot pool. Actually, I started off on tequila sunrises. Tequila was my drink. I started getting in trouble on that. I realized that I couldn't do that. So I dropped down to beer. However, you can get relatively drunk on beer. So my life was really pretty much just, I don't know, it was in a spiral, basically. I knew something had to change, but I didn't know what. And I decided that I was going to move back home and live with my parents, my mom and my stepdad. They were living in Norfolk, Virginia at the time, and I hadn't seen them in years. And basically, just show up on the doorstep. Hi, here I am. And they let me in. I just turned 20. Actually, I was just about to turn 20. And my stepdad helped me get a job in a shipyard, working on boats. And I started doing that, and actually made a friend that lived right here in North Carolina. He lived in Currituck, so it's over by the water. And we started hanging out, and what ended up happening is we'd work all day, and then we would drive to the titty bars and get drunk, spend all our money, and then he would drive to North Carolina, and then I would drive back to Norfolk, Virginia. And I started, it was them nights where, your best driving is when one eye closed, or, even better nights, you got to wake up and look and see if your car's even out there. You don't remember getting home. It was stuff like that. And I started getting nervous, and I figured, man, I'm either going to get in an accident or I'm going to get a DUI. So I came up with a brilliant idea. This is what we're going to do, because in order for us to go to the titty bar that we was hanging out at, I would have to go from work and drive towards North Carolina. We'd go to a bar there and get really drunk within a matter of a few hours, and he'd go his way, and then I would have to drive past work and then go all the way down into Norfolk just to get home. So my solution is I would just drive back to the shop, and I would park my truck in the shop, and I would pass out in the truck. In the morning when everybody got there, it'd wake me up. We got showers and all that kind of stuff, and that's how I do it. And I did that for a while. And they finally got tired of me passing out in their shop. Because while you might have gotten some hours sleep, you ain't sober when you get up. And I'm going out and I'm working on these, $1 million+ boats, half drunk. And on my 21st birthday, they fired me. And I was like, oh no, now what? So I ended up getting a temporary labor job in Baltimore, Maryland, working at another shipyard. So I left everything that I had in Norfolk and I drove up there, and I showed up onto the job site the first day. I was supposed to meet him at such and such a tanker. And I went there and there was none of my crew was there. And I didn't go search them out. I literally sat there at that tanker for 8 hours. I went and I clocked out. The next day, I went right back to the same place. I sat there for 8 hours, never searched for anybody, clocked out. I did that one more day. And by that fourth day, they finally called me and they was like, hey man, we don't need you anymore. As if that was a surprise. He's like, you got till the weekend to get out, because they were giving me a room to sleep in. So I got my little partial check, and I'm like, now what? Well, my solution was, you know what? I remember this Jesus. I'm gonna go buy me a Bible and see what it says. And I do that, and I start reading it, and I'm devouring it. I'm reading it. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, and I'm lost, and I just don't know what to do with my life. And what I begin to see is all these people, right? They're going from town to town and they're telling people about Jesus, and all these miracles are happening, and that's Christianity. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be a Christian. And this is what I do. I literally jump in my truck and I start driving back and forth across the United States. And I'm stopping anywhere there's anybody at. I don't care if it's parks, Walmart parking lots, homeless shelters, wherever. I'm stopping and I'm, getting out and basically doing street preaching. And I'll work, odd jobs or day labors or panhandle or whatever it was to, keep gas in my truck and, have something to eat. And I did that for about a year and a half. And I picked up a woman hitchhiking. And she had just got kicked out of a witching coven. And I shared the gospel with her, and she made a profession of faith. And at that time, I had picked up a guy, and we were traveling around doing this together. And it was just one of the little Toyotas, 4x4s. And I had made the back it had a bed, or it could be benches, or you've probably seen something like that. Well, he decided he was going to sleep in the front of the cab, and then that left the back for me and her. Well, you can imagine what that turned into. First night we started sleeping together. And in my mind, okay, now we got to get married. That's what we got to do. That's how you be a good Christian. Let's get married. So it took 3 months, and we finally found somebody that was going to marry us. And we got married. And at this point in time, I'm thinking, okay, now the right thing to do is to settle down and, have a family and be a good husband. And I tried to do this, and we're back in Ohio now. And she's still ready to roam. She doesn't want to settle down. She wants to continue to travel the roads and do all that stuff that we were doing. And I'm thinking, no, we need to settle down. And so at this time, my mom was fixing to move to Ohio. My stepdad had moved to Ohio and left her in Norfolk, Virginia. Pretty not a nice neighborhood. So she'd asked me, she's like, son, it's kind of bad up here. Would you come and just stay with me so that I feel safe? And I was like, sure, Mama, we're on our way. So I packed up and went to my mom's house, and me and my wife, I was like, yeah, by the way, I'm married, another surprise for her. And I get my job back at the shipyard that I got fired from, and I'm doing good. I'm working, and I got everything except for the security deposit. I got first and last, and the utilities. All I needed was enough for the security deposit, and I'd have all the money that we needed to move into the place that we'd already picked out. And it's New Year's Day of 2000. Some of y'all are old enough to remember the Y2K. The world was supposed to end, right? Well, New Year's Day of 2000, she comes down the stairs, and she's got her bag slung over her shoulder, and she says, I'm leaving, and I'm like, okay. And she's walking out the door, and she stops on the way out, and she turns around, and she says, I did it. I said, you did what? She said, I took you from your God, and she smiled in my face and walked out the door. And I knew at that moment she was right. She was wrong, but she was right. I had stopped searching for the Lord a long time ago. And while it wasn't her fault, that shame, that condemnation kind of sunk in on me. And we went through the divorce process, and I got a divorce. And instead of turning to the Lord, I turned to alcohol. And I started drinking. And I started drinking hard. I ended up I did roofing jobs. I worked at Bob Evans, just all kinds of different stuff, to the point where 3 years later, in 2003, I realized I'm in trouble. I can't stop, and I need help. And I remember saying just a little prayer. I was like, I don't know what to do. You tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And my Christianity had boiled down to this: I couldn't go into a church. I couldn't talk to a Christian. I wasn't going to tell nobody about Jesus, right? I could go to a church parking lot at night with my 12-pack of beer and my ounce of weed and listen to the Christian radio station and get high and drunk until I was nervous that I wasn't going to be able to make it home, and then I would drive home and I'd pass out. Sometimes home was my car. And so one of the programs I listened to was called Unshackled. It's produced live in Chicago, Illinois at a place called Pacific Garden Mission. I had no idea about it, but it's true life dramatized stories of people before they knew Christ, how they come to know Christ, and a little bit about after they come to know Christ. And I always thought, man, I want that. And he laid it on my heart. Go to Pacific Garden Mission. Okay. So I quit my job at Bob Evans, and I took off in my little blue Cavalier that I had, and I told my mom, I'm going to this place in Chicago. And she's like, what? You're doing what? You're crazy. Anyway, I'm going. And I broke down. Transmission went out just north of Indianapolis. So I got quite a ways to go. And I was left with a decision. I was actually closer to turning back around and going back to Dayton. And I was like, no, I'm going to this place. So I literally left everything I had, all my paperwork, all my clothes, everything. I left it in that car on the side of the road, and I hitchhiked the rest of the way to Chicago. And I get to Chicago, and I finally ask somebody, where's the Pacific Garden Mission? They're like, oh yeah, it's right down here. And I go down there, and it's a homeless shelter. And I'd never experienced anything like this. Just the filth and the stink and the dirtiness and the desperation and depravity. I go into this place and I'm nervous, man. I'm like, I don't even know what I just stepped into. And I talked to one of the counselors, and they're like, well, we got a year-long Bible program. You can sign up and you can be on the Bible program, and we'll take care of you and send you through the Bible program, and you can graduate in a year. I was like, okay, well, I'm here. Let's do this. And so they put me on security. Now, this was a lockdown facility. You didn't get out like y'all are allowed to get out. We were only allowed out every once in a while. But working on security, I got to wander around the neighborhoods. And one of the rules there is you weren't allowed to smoke. And being on security, I was allowed to walk around outside, never quit smoking for a second. I was the guy, if there was a cigarette laying on the ground, if there was any meat on it at all, I was picking that bad boy up and I was smoking it. And at first, I was all cool. I'd rip the filter off because I didn't want to get nothing, and I'd smoke it. After a little while, I just realized I was wasting tobacco, so it was just, I'd burn it up. I didn't even care, right? Smoked for a year, never got caught. Thought I was okay. Never got in any trouble. Did everything they asked me to do. My year's up, and I'm graduating, and I'm sitting in a park. I'm supposed to be at church, but I'm sitting in a park thinking, okay, now what do I do? I literally became homeless to come here to Chicago. Now what? That I've graduated, what am I going to do? And I'm sitting there in this park, and I feel the Lord talk to me. And he says, go to Bible college. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to join the Army. I've always wanted to join the Army, and you know what? They're going to give me money. They're going to get me out of Chicago, and I can go and do all this cool stuff. I'm going to join the Army. 30 days later, I'm on a plane heading to Fort Benning. And it's cool. I mean, I was an older guy, 29, I think, so older than most people there, but mentally tougher. So what was kind of hard for them, I was like, yeah, whatever, just do it, shut up. Yeah. And so I went through that, and you weren't allowed to smoke or drink. So, it was kind of one of them environments. And finally I went to my station, which is in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's where I was stationed at. And I hit station and started drinking and smoking like you wouldn't believe. Was a good soldier, though. Started to progress through the ranks. And within 6 months, I was on my first tour to Iraq. And I learned real quick, it ain't like on TV. It's not all that glorious. It's not all that cool. I mean, most of it's boring. And then when it ain't boring, it's terrifying and horrible. And I mean, I've seen people turn into pink clouds right in front of me. So I went over there and I was like, okay, I'm going to die in Iraq. And this is what I'm thinking. I'm just going to die over here. And I think about it for a little while, and I'm like, you know what? I could be dead in a gutter somewhere, and my parents wouldn't have any reason to be proud of me whatsoever. This is a pretty good way to go. If I'm gonna go, I'm gonna die serving my country. At least they can be proud of it. So that's what I think. I've determined in my mind I'm gonna die in Iraq, and we do just over a year deployment, and we come back, and I'm not dead. But in my contract, I know I at least got one more deployment in me. So I come back and I literally try to drink the town dry. I'm drinking and prostituting and whatever, just trying to have a good time because I'm fixing to die, right? This is what I'm believing. And finally, it's time to go back to Iraq, and I go, and it's worse. As soon as we hit the ground, we were taken over for a National Guard unit. It was so bad for the National Guard unit, they pulled back into the base and they didn't even do patrols out anymore. So we got there, and it was firefight after firefight, and people dying left and right, and you know. So I'm like, okay, here it comes, and I'm ready for it. I begin to clear whole buildings by myself, putting myself in positions where I can die, because I'm just consigned to the fact that I'm gonna die, and I'm not dying. And we have a particularly hard, I say day, it's actually 3 days. We get ambushed, and immediately 5 of our guys get taken down. And yeah, it's a 3-day long event basically. And it's one of those times you're just so tired, everything's hilarious. Like you don't even know why you're laughing, but it's just hilarious. And I'm just like, whatever. And me and my squad leader, we have words. And so me throwing a little temper tantrum, like the man that I am, instead of jumping back in my truck, I jump in my buddy's truck. And I'm all mad, so I take all my gear off and I sling it in a corner and I'm pouting. I want everybody to know I'm upset. And we're driving along and it's nighttime now, and the truck I'm in is right in front of my truck. And then you see it before you hear it. But you see the flash and then you hear the explosion. And I look out the back and it's literally on fire. What had happened was there was a guy standing on the side of the road in the bushes that you couldn't see. He threw a thermite grenade up against the side of our MRAP. And what happens is these things explode super hot, and then it has a secondary explosion that shoots a rod down through the weakened armor, and it penetrated on into the inside. And we do a lot of spray painting, stenciling on houses and stuff like that. So there's spray paint cans and fumes and all that kind of stuff. And it caught the inside of the MRAP on fire. My guys are all falling out, and some of them get hurt and shipped off to Germany. And so I'm like, whatever. And a couple of days later, they finally get it back to our fob, and they're kind of inspecting it. And they see the hole where the grenade had gone through, went right through one of the seats. The only reason that no one died in that is because that seat was empty. That was my seat. And it was at that moment I realized that even in the midst of my rebellion, God was still protecting me. But at the same time, I was mad because I just missed my opportunity to die. And now what? I'm like, this don't even make any sense, man. I was upset, and you know, I got combat stress going on. You know, I've been over here for more than 2.5 years. I'm sick of this place, and I'm not learning to speak this Haji language, and it's where I'm at. And finally, this tour comes to an end, and it's time to go home. And we come back, and we hit post. And no, I'm sorry, I missed an important part. It's about a week later, after this whole event of the truck burning down. We're doing a patrol through Samar, and I got a team with me. It's not my regular team because many of them got hurt, but we're going through and we're clearing this little village out, and this guy steps out onto his porch and he waves us over, and we're nervous because you're not that happy to see us. So me and my team, we go over, and I follow him into the house, and I'm taking points. So I'm going through and I'm clearing the rooms as we go, and he walks into this back room and he's waving us in here, right? And so we go in there, and as I walk into this back room, I go ahead and I clear the room, and then I look and I see where he's pointing at up on this wall. And up on this wall is a big mural of the Last Supper. Remember when I said I felt like I got kicked by a mule? Yeah, I felt it again. Because here this guy is, he lives in a country where displaying his faith like that, they could literally drag him out in the street, beat him to death, no one would say anything. And he's proudly doing it. Here I am, I live in a country where I can freely display my faith, and I don't say anything because I'm ashamed of the way I live. So it was at that moment I knew I had to get out of the Army. And I do. I come back, I'm back here in Fort Campbell, and I'm like, now what? Because I was expecting to be dead. I wasn't expecting to have to keep going on. And they won't let you get right out. They call it ETSing. You got to stay for at least 90 days before they'll let you out to make sure that you're okay mentally and everything. So I do that, and I ETS out, and I go back to Ohio. And here I now got a big fat bank account. I got 2 deployments under my belt. I didn't have any family or anything that I was spending my money on, so everything's just been sitting in the bank. I got like $50,000 in my bank account. So I go and I move my little brother in with me, and I get a 2-bedroom house with a fenced-in yard and 2-car garage and brand new truck, and we move into this house, and I buy my PlayStation and as much weed as I can smoke and all the beer that I can drink, and I literally live in my living room. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not doing anything. I can rock band with the best of y'all. That's what I'm saying. And this is what I do for about almost 2 years. And then I realize, my money's starting to wear out. I don't know what I'm going to do. So inevitably, I know that I got to start looking for a job, and I find one. My other brother, he's working at a place called Pioneer. I'm making radios, and I get a job there, and making and testing radios, and it's okay, but it's like $8.50, $9 an hour, so it nowhere near helps me compensate for the habit that I have after the amount of money that I've been making. So my money keeps going down and down and down and down, and he turns me on to these farmers. We'll pick. That's what we do, and we'll make some money, make some extra cash. And I did, and I worked hard. My goal was to outwork every single one of y'all. Like no one was going to work harder than me. And he saw that I worked really, really hard, and it came to the point in time where I was no longer able to sustain the lifestyle that I was living. I ended up quitting my job at Pioneer just because I was freaking going crazy. And I asked him, I was like, Vic, man, can I get year-round work? He's like, yeah, I'll work you year-round, and I'll let you live in one of my farmhouses, and it's utilities and everything paid, so you don't got to pay me nothing, and just show up and work. I was like, all right, and this is what I began to do, and still drinking, working hard, right? But we're out here in farmland, and what ended up happening was I wasn't making enough to continue to sustain the habit that I had, so I had to start hawking stuff that I had. And pretty much, I had gotten rid of everything. My TV and my PlayStation, and all the way down to my washer and dryer. I didn't even have no way to wash my clothes anymore. And I basically, other than my truck, that was the only thing I had left of value. And I came up with a brilliant idea. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to this program, I'm gonna knock it out real quick, and then I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna live the rest of my life. And that's what I do, right? My little brother holds my truck, and I put all the stuff that I have in storage, and my mom covers the storage facility, and I go back to Chicago. I do 3 months, because that's their requirement is to do 60 days. You do 60 days, if you leave, you can come back into the program. And so I do the 60 days, and then I do another 30 days just to make sure I'm good. And then I come on home, and it lasted 10 days. I did my devotion the first morning, and my mom walked in the middle of doing my devotion, and I just kind of felt all weird and like shameful. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. And I ended up getting a job at Cracker Barrel. And I was working there, and about the 8th day, 7th, 8th day, it started hitting me at night. Right before I lay down and go to sleep, I'd get thirsty. I was like, nah, I can do this. And I'd go to sleep. And I'd wake up the next morning, I'd be all right. Next day, yeah, I go out, nah, I'll be all right. Finally, the 9th day, I'm traveling down a road, and there's a bar there. And I got no reason to be on this road, but I'm traveling down this road, and I look, and there it is, and I just kind of drive by. Next day, I drive by a little bit slower. Finally, on that 10th day, I pull into the parking lot, and I'm sitting there. There's a bar here, and then there's a gas station here, and I'm sitting there in in my truck, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, if I'm gonna drink, I might as well smoke too. And so I walked over and I got me a pack of cigarettes. I went right over to the bar, got drunk. Okay, off to the races we go again. So this is what I was doing because I closed. I would go and I would work, and I'd close and I'd go to the Speedway that was right across the street. I'd get all the beer that I need. I'd get all the cigarettes I was gonna smoke. I would travel to a park. I would sit out in the park. I would drink up all my beer and smoke my cigarettes, and I would go home. I'm getting home, 10:30, 11, or 10:30, or 11:30, 12 o'clock, maybe even 1, depending on. And my parents are asleep. They ain't staying up waiting on me. You know what I mean? So I just go in the house and I go in, lay down, go to sleep, wake up the next day like nothing was wrong. And that lasted about 2 weeks. And finally the guilt got to me, and I went to my mom and I was like, hey Mom, I'm smoking and drinking again. She's like, well, why would you do that? Now you gotta move out. I'm like, all right. So I moved back into the farmhouse, and I'm there, and I'm working for the farmers, and it's just not getting any better. And now I'm to the point where I'm just so disgusted with my life, I just want to die. I don't even want to wake up anymore. And I'm getting mad that I'm waking up the next morning. So I'm at the point now where I'm getting drunk twice a day. I drink, pass out, wake up, drink, pass out. That's my life. And finally I remember one night I had gotten real drunk, and I'm standing in the middle of my living room, and I'm arguing with God like I do sometimes, and I'm shaking my fist at him. I'm like, God, this is your fault. I know you love me when you make me quit smoking cigarettes. And I take my beer bottle and slam it up against the wall, right? And I show God, right? Because it's his fault that I'm going through this. And it was the very next day, I come up with an idea, right? Because at this point in time, I'm driving to work and running out of gas. So I gotta leave my truck, finish walking to the farm, work all day at the farm, get paid, walk back to my truck, grab my gas can out of my truck, walk to the gas station, which by the way isn't nowhere near, get gas, walk all the way back to my truck, right? Put the gas in, drive right back to the same gas station and get my beer, my cigarettes, spice for any of y'all who know what that is. And then if I got any money left over, I'd put a couple dollars in for gas. And then if I had any more left over than that, I would give me something to eat. Normally I didn't have anything left over. I was going days without eating, and I wasn't even hungry. But I came up with this brilliant idea. I'm gonna buy a dozen eggs. I'm gonna boil these things, because you can carry those around in your pocket, right? And I can have me a boiled egg whenever I get hungry. So I'm sitting down. I remember I ain't got no entertainment, nothing. So I'm just sitting in my living room, drinking my beer, waiting on the eggs to boil, and I pass out. Next thing I know, I wake up and the house is full of smoke. And I'm confused, I'm delirious, because I'm just waking up out of a drunken stupor. I'm kind of walking around, I go into the kitchen, and there's exploded eggs everywhere. All over the ceiling, all over the floor. The pan is sitting on the stove, the bottom half is glowing red hot. So I go over there and I turn that thing off, and I'm like, man, I could have just burnt the house down, whatever. And I turn around, I'm walking out of the kitchen, and as I'm walking out of the kitchen, right there along the wall is where my trash is at. And I had for whatever reason, I clearly remember just taking the trash out. And I look, and it's like it registers how many empty 12-pack containers are there. And it's like, I understand at that moment how much I'm truly drinking. And something settles into my soul. I'm gonna die. Not in the future, not down the road. I'm gonna die right here in this farmhouse if something don't change. I said, all right, God. I said, if you're there, help me. He says, okay, go to the Pacific Garden Mission. Man, I'm not going to that place. I've done been there twice. I'm not going back to that place. It takes 2 months of me and him arguing back and forth. You know what did it? I got tired of running out of gas and walking to the gas station. That's what did it. That's what broke me, right? Because that's a lot. After working all day at the farm, and now you got to walk miles to go get a couple dollars worth of gas just to get back to your truck. I got tired of it. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I tell the farmers I'm working for, hey, I gotta leave. I'm going to this place in Chicago, try to get help. I said, I'm I'm going to go ahead and put my truck up for sale. He's like, how much you want for it? Well, it's a $9,000 truck. I was like, man, I'll take like $4,000. I'll buy it. Okay. Well, he buys my truck for $4,000. I tell my mom I'm going to Chicago, and she's like, well, what are you going there for? You already been there. It don't make no sense. I said, I know, Mom, but that's where I'm going. There's a problem. What do you think the problem is? I got $4,000 in my pocket. So I go to the airport and make it to the motel beside the airport. And for about 12 days, I'm doing the same thing. I'm drinking and smoking. I'm getting taxi rides to the Rite Aid so I can buy me some more spice when I run out. Right? This is what I'm doing. Ain't nothing changed. And finally, I'm like, man, if I don't leave now, I'm not going to even be able to afford to get to Chicago. So I do. I leave. I go to Chicago, and I'm walking up to the place, and as I'm walking up to it, I say it out loud, I ain't ready yet. And I walk right past it. And I go to a Best Western downtown Chicago. It's like $150-something a night. So the remainder of my money goes pretty quick. And I'm drinking and smoking, and I wake up one morning and I got $30 left in my pocket. And I'm not about to be street homeless. So I was like, okay, I'll go. So I walked to the program. And I walk in, and as I'm walking in, there's a guy walking out, and I literally hand him my pack of cigarettes and my lighter, which I had just bought, smoked 2 out of. It was $10 a pack there, by the way. And I go in and I sit down, and the counselor that comes in, he knows me. We're familiar with each other, and he's like, hey man, you're a veteran around here. How long you gonna be here this time? And I'm like, till God tells me otherwise. And I know that's a simple statement, but something broke on the inside of me. When I said that statement, it was like I had surrendered. I didn't have an exit plan. I didn't have a plan B. I didn't have an ulterior motive. I didn't have anything. I'm here. Whatever happens is what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, I'm not craving cigarettes. I'm not craving alcohol. I'm not craving weed. I'm not craving anything. Like, he literally delivers me from all of it. And I wake up the next morning after that first day, because that first day is always a blur. I wake up, and I'm happy. I can't tell you the last time I'd been happy. I mean, I literally got a smile plastered on my face, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. And I just start going through my days, and I start doing my program, and I actually start doing it right. And what I realize is it's not the material that's saving me, right? The material is only pointing me to Christ, who is saving me. And I begin to understand that there's an actual relationship here, that he's real, he's alive. Like, I can communicate with him, he communicates back, he loves me, he's interacting with me. He begins to teach me more about who he is. He begins to teach me more about who I am. And I had already told my mom before I left, that when I told her I was coming to the Pacific Garden Mission, I told her that I'm going to work in the counselor's office there. Sure enough, after my 60 days was over, he comes to me, my pastor, he's like, hey man, I'd like you to come work in the counselor's office. Okay. And I do that. And now my job is that everybody that comes in this building has to come and sit in front of me. And I get to tell them about Jesus. I get to hear about their life. I get to point them in the right direction, help them with whatever they need in the program, get them on the Bible program if they need to. I answer prayer lines. Like, the people be calling in from all over the world asking for prayer for different things. Like, this is literally what he's got me doing. And I'm loving it. I'm doing all this stuff. And all of a sudden, I feel this pressure. It's like this weight. Like, because I've been telling the gospel to people over and over and over again, and nobody's, receiving him. And I'm just like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And Saturday is our busy day, and it was a pretty hectic Saturday, and we got done, and we have a big evening service. And then after that, I got to walk past my office to go up the stairs to get to where my dorm is at. And I had left some paperwork in there, and I needed to grab it. So I walked into the office, and I grabbed my paperwork, and just as I was fixing to walk out, the phone rang. I'm like, man, I don't want to answer this stupid phone. I was like, all right. And I answered the phone. Praise the Lord, Pacific Garden Mission, how can I help you? And this person, you could tell they're not from this country, but they're speaking to me, and they're like, yeah, I just got done listening to Unshackled, and they said that if I called here, somebody would tell me how to receive Jesus as my Savior. And it caught me so off guard. I was like, excuse me? And they literally repeated themselves. And I realized what was happening. And I sat down and I led them through the gospel, and they accepted the Lord right there. And I got their information, and I sent them a first timers packet. And I thanked them and prayed with them and all that kind of stuff. And I'm getting off the phone. And as I'm hanging up, that same voice speaks to me. And literally all he says is, the work to be done is mine. And I realized at that moment, it isn't even about me. It's about him and what he's doing in the lives of everyone, including myself. And all of a sudden, that burden to have to perform was gone. Now I don't have to perform. I just got to let him do what it is he's trying to do. And I begin to go through my program, and I'm growing. And finally, it's at the end of my year again. And I don't get to walk across the stage and graduate again, but I get my graduate status back. And I'm at the same point, I'm thinking, okay, now what do I do? And I was like, all right, Lord, whatever you want me to do. Guess what he said? Go to Bible college. I was like, oh, man. I was like, all right, well. And there's a traveling evangelist there, and Pastor Nance. He came to me a day or two later. He's like, you know what? I do this route where I travel around and I share gospel messages with all these people, and I'm looking for somebody to take over my route so I can start a new route. Would you be interested? And I'm like, well, yeah, I used to do that. That means sure I can do that. And I go on back into the mission, and my pastor comes to me and he's like, hey, you know what? Why don't you fill out an application to go to Moody Bible Institute? And I'm like, oh man, like I know this is what the Lord's calling me to do, but going back to school isn't my biggest, highest thrill right this moment. I'm like, all right. And so I go talk to Pastor Nance. I'm like, listen, this is what my pastor's telling me to do. He's like, wow, Moody, that's a pretty hard school to get into. He said, so we'll do this. He said, you fill out your application, and if they accept you, we'll just assume that's from the Lord, and you'll go to Bible college. He said, if they don't accept you, no big deal, you can still come with me. I was like, okay, already knowing what's fixing to happen. 3 of us put in our applications. One guy, he can't get the pastor and a woman to vouch for his character, so they won't even accept his application. The other guy has the same pastor as me, and we work in the same office. And within 3 weeks, he gets his declination notice back. Sorry, we don't accept you. And I get nothing. And I'm already knowing what's going to happen. It took another month, and finally, I got my acceptance notice. You have been accepted into the Moody Bible Institute for the fall program. I'm like, yay. Okay, I guess I'm going to college. And finally, I can sign myself to that fact. And I start going to Bible college, and it's hard. Like, I'm reading 5 and 6 books at the same time, and I've got papers coming out both years, and like I just don't know how I'm going to do all this stuff. And I have something going for me, because a lot of the students, they have to work a part-time job. I have something called the GI Bill, and the GI Bill is paying for everything else that I needed to pay for school and gives me enough money to live on so that I don't have to have a job. And it's at that moment I realized he asked me to go to Bible college. I said no, and I went to the Army, and he's now using the Army to send me through Bible college. So he does use all things for good to those who love God that are called according to his purpose, right? And I just think that's hilarious. And so I'm going through it, and it's been a couple of months now. I was keeping a journal as I was going through school. I didn't want to be there, guys. It was hard. I was struggling. Every day I wanted to quit. But I kept pushing forward, and it seemed like I would have just enough strength to get through the semester, to get a little bit of a break, and then I'd be re-energized, and I'd be like, okay, I can do another semester. And that's basically the way I did it. And so I'm in the middle of my junior and senior year, and we got to do an internship. And I've always wanted to have an actual operating farm recovery ministry. That's what I want to do. So I Google recovery farm ministry. Guess what comes up? Freedom Farm Ministry. I'm like, okay, well, let me check this place out. And I go on and get online and check out all the stuff. And there's some guys in here talking about it. And I'm like, okay, I look at the doctrinal statement, and then we line up. I'm like, okay. So I call and I'm talking to Jim. And I call him one day, and I'm like, hello, sir. My name is James Hester. I'm a student at the Pacific Garden Mission, or I'm at Moody Bible Institute. And I got to do an internship. And I was wondering if I could come up here and intern with you guys. And he's like, yeah, we've never done anything like that. I was like, well, I've just always really been interested in working in a farm type environment. He's like, yeah, this ain't a farm. We don't grow nothing. I'm like, well, I would really like to see what y'all are doing. If y'all have a slot and I could come up here and do that. He's like, listen, I just don't think this is the right environment. We've never done an intern or anything like that before. I was like, okay, well, if I talk to my professors and they say that it's okay, would you consider it? He's like, well, you can talk to him, but I just don't think this is the place for you. Okay, thank you for your time. And I hung up. I'm thinking, wow, okay, this ain't it. So I start searching for other things. The problem is there is no other things. I can't come up with any other ideas. And I'm thinking, man. So I go and I talk to my professor, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, it's no problem. First time internship is just fine. He said, listen, let him read this paperwork. As long as he can match all these criteria, you'll be good. And you can go do it and you'll get credit for it. And I'm like, okay. So I call him back. It's been about a week now. And I'm like, yeah, sir, I talked to my professors and they were like, yeah, it's fine. I have, a paper that's explaining all the stuff and I can email it to you. He's like, well, you can email it to me, but I just don't think we're set up for an internship. We've never done anything like that. And I don't think this is the place. I was like, well, I'll send you an email. He's like, yeah, okay, here's my email thing. And I'm thinking, I get off the phone with him and I'm like, what's going on? Like, this guy's a jerk. And like, I don't even know what's supposed to be happening. Right. So I'm like halfway consigned that I'm not even going to come here, but I go ahead and I send the email out like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I give him a couple of days. That way he's got a chance to read it. Finally, I give him a call back, just a shot in the dark. I'm figuring it's going to be the same thing, and then, I'm running out of time, basically. I got to give him my decision. And, I call him, I'm like, hey, this is James from Chicago. He's like, hey, man. All of a sudden, he flipped the script on me. He's like, man, I had a board meeting. We talked to the board members, and I think this would be a great idea. We're not going to pay you anything, but if you want to come down here and work, I was like, no, it's an internship, and we'll do this for free. He's like, yeah, you can come down here. I'm not going to hold your hand, and we're not going to pay you anything, but if you want to come down here and hang out with the guys, we'd love to have you. I'm like, finally, like there's a little bit of sunshine there. I can do this. I was like, okay, I'll be there. This is the day that I'm going to be here, and this is how long I'm going to be here. He's like, okay. So I get off the phone with him, and then days start to go by. And you know how it is. If you buy your ticket earlier, it's less expensive. And days are going by, and I'm not buying a ticket. And my pastor, he finally comes to me one evening. He says, anytime you're ready to buy that ticket, just let me know. We'll jump online. We'll buy it. We'll get you on out there. I was like, okay, whatever. And I get on the bus the next morning, and I'm going to school. And I'm sitting there. That's usually when I do my devotion. And all of a sudden I hear that voice. You'll get familiar with that voice. It says, what, are you scared? I literally verbally answer, yeah, I'm scared. You're asking me to leave all this stuff, my support system, my church, and go over here to this place, and I don't even know what's supposed to be going on. And just as quiet and as calm as could be, he said, so I'm not God in North Carolina too? I said, oh. And I realized that moment I was operating out of fear. I was more secure in my environment and with my situation than I was with God. I realized that, and I was like, okay. So I got home that evening, and I went straight to my pastor. I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's buy the ticket. And I do. Come on up here. And I end up here first, and one of the guys from the DLC house ends up getting me over to the thrift store, and I meet Steve, crazy Steve, right? I'm thinking, who's this dude, man? Hey, buddy. I was like, hey, how you doing? And I talk to him, and I understand everything that's going on. And then it's pretty much time for the safe house to go back out to safe house. And I don't know anything that's going on. And they're like, why don't you follow us out there? Because I still got my rental car. All right, no problem. And we start to drive, and we're driving and driving and driving. And I think, where are these people going, man? We took a wrong turn somewhere. They knew where they're going, and finally we pull up, and I'm sure we took a wrong turn somewhere. I'm like, what is this? Like, okay. So I get out, and I'm not really paying attention to the guys. I'm sitting there talking with the houseman at the time, and we walk in the front door, and he's kind of giving me the rundown, and he's giving me a tour of the house, and then we step out the back door, and as we step out the back door, the first thing I see is the smoke shack. And everybody's down there, and there's smoke billowing out of the smoke shack. I remember I shook my fist at God, told him I'd know he loved me when he made me quit smoking cigarettes, and he did, as an act of saying I love you. So for me to go back smoking cigarettes is the same as me going back and drinking. And I'm nervous. I'm like, oh no, they smoke. Like, I don't even, like, this is a Christian program. I wasn't expecting that. Like, so I'm on the phone, and I'm calling my prayer partners. I'm calling my pastor. I'm like, hey, y'all need to pray for me. They smoking down here. Like, I don't know what to do. And got the little bungalow out back. That's where they got me. And I'm sitting there that evening, and I'm doing my devotion, and all of a sudden I hear this noise, and I'm like, what is that sound? And I go to the little window, and I open up the window and look out, and there's a stream running out in the backyard. I'm like, what the world is this, right? I'm coming from Chicago. Gunshots, sirens, traffic, horns, that kind of stuff, I'm used to hearing. Peacefulness, that was weird. I was like, this is kind of crazy. But I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, I hear him again. He's like, I'll never take you anywhere I can't keep you. I'm like, okay. And I calmed down. And all of a sudden now I can hang out with the guys, and y'all smoke and stink, but it's okay, right? I know that I don't have to do it. And it's good. And so I do my first 5 weeks with the Safe House, just like the Safe House does it. I've done it with y'all. I know all about thrift store. It sucks, right? You're ready to eat a bullet by the time the day's over. Got it. Best way to do it is just stay busy, and the day goes by real quick, and it's time to go back out to the house. That's the way I did it, right? And so I got one more week left, and he's like, hey, I got a great idea. It's only the first time I've heard from him since I've been here, but he's got a great idea, so I'm listening. Why don't you go up to restoration with this group that's going up, and you can experience restoration? Like, yeah, great. Not thinking, okay, this is the week when they got to quit smoking, right? But I'm thinking, this is a great idea. So we go up there, beautiful property, like most peaceful thing, like especially during that time of year, because the sun comes up over the back and the trees turn gold, and you can sit out there in the early morning and do your devotion and drink your coffee and all the peace, because y'all guys are all cranky laying in the bed, right? Wonderful. Right? And I'm doing this. And then all of a sudden I begin to notice the attitudes are changing. All of a sudden I'm not James. I'm like, dude, get out of my face. That's pretty much where I turned to. And I was like, okay, I got this. I see what's happening here. And so we're going through this together, and, I kind of try to minister to him the best that I can. And, it's time for me to go. Okay. Bye. That's what I'm thinking. I'm out of here. Freedom Farm Ministry is in my rearview mirror. I'm never coming back to Boone or Creston ever again in my life, right? So I go back to college, and I got a whole nother year to do, and I finally get through that year, and now it's time to start putting out applications. And I start putting out applications everywhere. And there's a church in Orange County, California that is really interested in me. It's for high school outreach, $25,000 for the first year. And you get a donor family that puts you up in their house and provides you all that stuff, so you don't even have to spend anything like that for your first year. I'm like, sounds good, you know what I'm saying? It's pretty good, It's a starting point, is what I'm thinking. Right? I got another place in Missouri, Friends of Alcoholics, for any of y'all that maybe ever heard of that. They had just had a person that was working there just die, and, they was like, yeah, we could take you, I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden I come up with this brilliant idea. Why don't I call Freedom Farm Ministry and just see what they're doing? And I do. I call them. Hey, man, how you doing? I just want to let you know I was fixing to graduate and just see how y'all were doing. He's like, it's amazing that you called me today. He said, the guy that we had working up at Restoration, you remember Matt Corby? I was like, yeah, I remember Matt Corby. Yeah, he just came to my office today and said he's quitting. He can't work here anymore. So we got a spot open. Would you like to fill it? I was like, I'll pray about it, right? He's like, okay, you pray about it. You let me know. Right? And he's like, you know the deal. I mean, we don't pay much, but we'll give you a vehicle to ride around in, and, we'll go from there. I was like, okay, I'll pray about it, and I'll let you know. I want to come to Freedom Farm. Like, that's what I'm thinking, because I'm not going to make no money. I mean, I just spent $88,000 getting a degree, coming here to make a couple $100 a month. Scratch my head on that one for a minute. I can go over here, and I can make $25,000 a year, first year, in the sun. Ain't no cold weather in California. You know what I'm thinking? That's what I'm thinking. And then finally, one day it hit me. It's high school outreach. Now, I've done youth groups. I did almost 2.5 years in youth groups, and for one year I ran a youth group all by myself. I can do it. I'm not the guy you want to send your kids to. I'm not fun. I'm just not that guy. They love me. I love them. I teach them the information, but I'm definitely geared more towards adults, right? And so I begin to think about, you know what, that's not really my gifting. And I begin to think about, why am I even really considering this place? And then it stood out as big as day because of the money. As soon as I realized that it was the money that I was looking at, I said, nope. I just cut all communication with them. I wasn't going to go that way. Because while it might be good, I'm going after it for the wrong reason, which usually ends up wrong. You can't start wrong and hope you're going to end up good. So I said, nope, I'm done with that. And then these people in Missouri, it's like, I just couldn't work up the strength to call them anymore. I was interested, and I thought maybe it'd be good, and it's warm there, but it was like, I couldn't call them. I out for whatever reason. And I was sitting in the classroom one day, and I always get everywhere I go early, or I try to. I'm sitting there, and this one guy walked in, and we're sitting down there, and we're talking about, our internships and our future plans, and I mentioned Boone. And as I mentioned Boone, there's this girl walking in. She's like, I know Boone. There's this church down there. It's called Alliance. If you go there, it's a really good church. And she's like, who would you work for? I was like, Freedom Farm Ministry. She's like, yeah, they bring people there to get baptized all the time. I know all about them. My family lives up there. And I'm thinking, this person who walks in the door knows all about this place. Boone don't exist to nobody else. He ain't even here. And she knows all about it. That ain't a coincidence. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I wonder, is this you talking to me, Lord? And finally, it's a couple days later, I'm talking to another one of my friends that isn't in college with me, and I hear it come out of my mouth. I hear myself say, yeah, I'm going to Boone to work at Freedom Farm Ministry. And I hadn't even known that I made a conscious decision to come. But what I learned at that moment is my heart had already decided. My head just ain't caught up yet. And I was like, okay, Lord, I hear you. So I determined, all right, Jim, I'll come. This is when I'm going to be here. He's like, great, can't wait to see you, right? So I had to jump through a few more hoops, and I graduated, and I come here and end up at the thrift store. Because I'm thinking, man, I'm going to come and hang out for the first day. Man, I'm like 20 miles down the road, and Steve calls, hey, man, you going to come see me today? I said, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. So I go, and I'm hanging out, and I walk in, and first thing he does, he hands me a cleaner and a rag. He's like, yeah, man, we need the bathrooms cleaned. Would you mind doing those for me? I'm like, sure. I mean, I don't think nothing of it. I mean, I'm here to go to work, so I go in there and I clean the bathrooms. It wasn't until a year later that it hit me. I was like, that dude was testing me, right? It just didn't strike me at the time, but I realized that. I've never spoken to him about it, but I'm almost sure that's what he was doing. He was just wanting to see if I was willing to do it. I don't care. I'll clean the bathroom. You don't make me hurt. But anyway, I'm nervous. I'm here because sometimes you don't really know if you made the right decision or not. You just think you made the right decision. And, so I headed on back out to the safe house with the guys. I get to the safe house with the guys, and I walk through the front door. This is the only way I can explain it. I literally felt like I had been gone away from home for a long time and finally made it back home. And that's what I felt. And at that moment, I realized, yep, I did exactly what the Lord wanted me to do, even though I was nervous, even though I wasn't sure that's what I was supposed to do. And I made a commitment to him right then and there. I said, Lord, I'm not leaving until you tell me to. So this is why I do what I do. I've been working in this type of ministry for 7.5 years. I've lost 9 of you that I've particularly worked with myself that have gone out and died. And there are many of them out there right now that are on the brink. So I don't take this lightly. It's serious business. It is more real now because I have, flesh and blood here. But I have to ask myself, is the same stuff true for me, true for you, true for him? And if the answer is yes, then that's the only thing I have to worry about, right? Because I don't change you. I can't change him. I can't change me. I can tell you how I changed. And how I changed is through surrendering to the Lord Jesus Christ. And now I have a life I couldn't even expect. Right? I've learned to dive. I'm going diving next week, guys. I've got a wife that loves me. I got a job I love doing. When I get up in the morning, I'm happy. Like, I'm glad to be alive, right? I didn't have that. I don't make a whole lot of money, but I don't lack for anything. Me and my wife, we just gave each other our anniversary Christmas presents early. We couldn't wait, right? So I got her a electronic piano, which is basically like a real piano. It's just electronic. And she gave me this GoPro, right? I mean, the small things. And I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And I'm not worried about the future. What do I got to worry about? You know where I should be? I should be dead in a gutter somewhere smelling like urine. That's where I should be. And I'm not. And it's a gift. So I'm going to enjoy the gift while I have it. And then let him take care of everything that's coming in the future, right? Because listen, I wasn't worried about the future when I was out there drinking. Not even a little bit. I didn't want a future. I wanted to die. And now I'm flipped around and I want to live. So that's who I am. That's why I'm here. So there it is. If you've watched it to this point, I just want to say thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you received some encouragement and maybe some entertainment from watching this. And I hope this gives you a better idea of who I am and why it is I'm doing what I'm doing. I know what it feels like to be hopeless and to just be so stuck up in a sin that you just feel like there's no way out. And I just want you to know that there is hope, there is a way out, and that way out is through the gospel. We sow the seeds of God's word to reap a harvest of joy, and it always begins with the gospel of Jesus Christ first. So if you liked it, please give it that thumbs up. Comment down below. If you'd like to see more things like this, or you like the idea of the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll get notified every time I put out a new video. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.